The drama surrounding DeWanna Bonner, the Phoenix Mercury, and the Indiana Fever has taken a turn that no one saw coming. What began as a promising new chapter for a veteran player and a rising franchise has morphed into one of the most controversial storylines in recent WNBA memory. The spark that ignited this scandal came not from rumor or speculation, but from the mouth of Phoenix Mercury head coach Nate Tibbetts himself. A few seconds of offhand locker room chatter turned into a digital wildfire, spreading across fan pages and sports networks faster than any press release could contain it. In that short clip, Tibbetts smiled as he admitted that Phoenix had been trying to get Bonner back for 2 off-seasons, dropping a casual third time's a charm while jokingly crediting Alyssa Thomas with helping make it happen. But what sounded like a lighthearted comment to some felt like a confession to others. For fans of the Indiana Fever, those few words weren't just talk. They were proof that the organization had been played from the start. When Bonner first arrived in Indiana, it felt like a major victory. The Fever, desperate for veteran leadership to guide their young core led by Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, believed they had found their missing piece. Bonner, a 2-time WNBA champion and respected presence in the league, was supposed to bridge the gap between youthful potential and seasoned experience. Local headlines called her the mentor Indiana needed, a stabilizing force who could keep a young locker room focused through the grind of an 82-game season. For fans who had watched the Fever struggle to convert talent into wins, Bonner represented credibility. She was the grown-up in the room, the veteran who could help Clark adjust to professional pace and pressure. For a few short weeks, optimism hung thick in the air. The idea of Bonner and Clark sharing the floor was more than just exciting. It was symbolic of the franchise turning a corner. But that illusion didn't last long. Barely 9 games into the season, whispers of discontent began to circulate. Bonner wasn't happy. Reports said she felt out of rhythm with the team's fast-paced offense, uncomfortable with her reduced touches, or simply misaligned with the franchise's direction. Then came the bombshell. Bonner requested a trade. Within days, she was waived. No emotional farewell, no thank you post to the fans or teammates she was supposed to lead. Her departure was so abrupt that even Indiana insiders struggled to explain it. For a player who had been touted as the embodiment of professionalism, the silence spoke volumes. Something about the entire situation felt premeditated, too polished in its chaos to be random. When Tibbetts' clip surfaced weeks later, everything snapped into focus. His tone wasn't defensive or nervous, it was relaxed, almost smug. "Luckily, the last 2 off-seasons we've tried to get DB to come back to Phoenix," he said. "She didn't pick us twice, but third time's a charm. I think Alyssa Thomas helped in that a little bit." The grin that followed said it all. For Fever fans who had been insisting that Bonner's move didn't add up, this was confirmation. Phoenix hadn't just stumbled upon an opportunity. They'd been laying groundwork for years. And in the world of professional sports, that kind of long-term pursuit of a contracted player isn't strategy, it's tampering. In the WNBA, the rules are clear. Teams cannot contact or negotiate with players under contract with another organization. It's designed to preserve fairness, to prevent exactly the kind of behind-the-scenes manipulation that this clip seemed to reveal. But Tibbetts' comment didn't just hint at prior communication. It suggested a coordinated effort that spanned multiple seasons. To make matters worse, he invoked Alyssa Thomas, Bonner's partner and former teammate, as someone who helped in that a little bit. Whether he meant it as a harmless nod or an admission of involvement, the damage was done. Fans immediately pointed out the implications. If Thomas had influenced Bonner's decision while she was still playing elsewhere, that blurred the line between personal loyalty and professional ethics. Online, outrage exploded. Fever supporters flooded social media, calling for an official investigation into the Mercury and accusing Bonner of scamming Indiana. They claimed she had signed with the Fever purely to collect a max contract salary, never intending to see it through. Posts dissected her every action during her short Indiana stint, her disengaged body language on the bench, her vague exit statement, her refusal to say goodbye to fans. Every detail became part of a growing theory that Phoenix had orchestrated her move from the very beginning. This wasn't about fit, one viral comment read. It was about finesse. For Indiana's loyal fan base, it felt like betrayal. They had celebrated Bonner, honored her career milestones, and welcomed her with open arms. Caitlin Clark had even subbed back into a game to help Bonner hit a scoring record. In return, they got what felt like a con job, a player who used their franchise as a temporary stop, a paycheck before returning to the team she'd wanted all along. The anger wasn't just about losing a player, it was about being made a fool of in front of the entire league. Meanwhile, the league office stayed silent. No statements, no investigations, not even a clarification. The absence of accountability made the situation worse. Fans began asking difficult questions. Would Phoenix be treated differently because of its star power? Would smaller market teams like Indiana always be vulnerable to this kind of manipulation? The imbalance of power within the WNBA, between glamour franchises like Phoenix and rebuilding teams like Indiana, had never felt more obvious. Every time the clip of Tibbetts resurfaced, it reignited that frustration. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. The smug familiarity, the offhand third time's a charm, turned what might have been a private indiscretion into a public insult. As the controversy grew, commentators began piecing together a timeline that made the conspiracy feel less like theory and more like inevitability. The Mercury had wanted Bonner for 2 years, but couldn't afford her on a max deal. So, according to online speculation, Bonner signed that contract with Indiana, collected part of the salary, and then engineered her exit once Phoenix had the cap flexibility to bring her home. In that version of events, Indiana had been little more than a financial middleman. They had paid the price so Phoenix could reap the reward. It was, as one fan called it, a max-level heist. The numbers backed up the suspicion. Bonner's max contract in Indiana guaranteed her a hefty payout even if she didn't finish the season. Once waived, she was free to sign elsewhere, and Phoenix, conveniently, now had space to offer her a smaller deal that didn't strain their payroll. To Fever fans, that wasn't coincidence. It was choreography, the kind of quiet, calculated maneuvering that turns fans into cynics and makes leagues look complicit. For weeks, the story refused to die. Sports analysts debated whether Tibbetts' comments were enough to trigger disciplinary action. Legal experts pointed out that even joking references to multi-year pursuit could be interpreted as evidence of tampering. Still, nothing from the WNBA office. No fines, no penalties, just silence. For Caitlin Clark and the Fever's young core, the fallout was personal. The locker room, they were told, would be led by a steady veteran suddenly felt fractured. Rotations were shuffled, chemistry disrupted, and questions hung in the air. Did Bonner ever plan to help them? Was she playing half-heartedly knowing her exit was already in motion? The betrayal wasn't just organizational, it was emotional. The Fever had invested faith in someone who had already chosen another team. And in professional sports, loyalty still matters, especially when it's built on trust and shared sacrifice. Losing that kind of bond can shake a young team's confidence. But instead of collapsing, something else happened. The Fever got angry, and then they got united. The scandal that was supposed to break them became a